Welcome to Marketing. Grab some coffee and let's talk about what's working in marketing, who these strategies are designed for, and how to be customer-centric while we do it.
Hi, this is Leanne with Markegy. Today I'm joined by Darrell Alfonso, and he's going to share with us quite a bit about marketing operations. Darrell, tell us more.
Yeah, great to be here, Leanne. I'm Darrell Alfonso. I'm the Director of Marketing Strategy and Operations at Indeed.com. We're the world's largest job site and the world's largest matching and hiring platform. I've spent 15 plus years in marketing operations. I started in a startup, just kind of moved my way up from there, mid-size. Then before this, I was at AWS, and Amazon at the time was at 1 million employees. I don't know what they are now. And AWS was tens of thousands. So a ton of experience across industries and across different company sizes. And I'm also a content creator. I have a newsletter. I write on LinkedIn. I've been doing so for about 5 years now. And it's wonderful to not just work in marketing operations, but to also write and help others learn it.
Yeah, thank you. And I love the richness to the content that you share. So I think listeners really would do well by themselves to see the type of stuff that you put out, because it's very informative, and it really does help people. So today I do want to kind of pick your brain about what is a soapbox or a big marketing strategic thing where you want to shout it to the world and you're like, guys, you need to know this in order to be successful or to have your head on straight about the way that we approach marketing.
Yes. And my big thing is that most GTM teams, most marketing teams, most leadership teams, they are not executing well on their strategy because of a lack of investment in operations. And operations of all kinds, marketing ops, revenue ops, GTM ops, or whatever you call it. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that most of business, most of even life even, is operations. Strategy, in my opinion, and there's several different there's several different schools of thought on this. But I like the idea of strategy as a deliberate set of choices that you make to achieve your objective. So strategy is choices that you're making. Now, once you make these choices, in order to actually bring that strategy to life, it's execution, it's logistics, it's actually the hands-on keyboard work that you have to do to create the campaign, to run the sales and marketing plays, to create the website. All of that is operations. And I define marketing operations as the art and science of executing great marketing. So if you think of it that way, strategy really is just slides on a PowerPoint deck or a Google slide. Everything else is operations. So that's like the big thing that I like to shout from the rooftops, is that leaders, companies need to make a serious investment in the people, process, technologies, and data to bring their strategies to life. And they're not doing so at the level at which they should today.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important to think about, is that where do we have the delineation between what the ideas are and what's actually happening in the real world? Because an idea without the execution is just hopes and dreams. It's not real. It's not concrete. It's too abstract, and it's kind of useless. It might make people's egos feel great, but if you have goals that you're trying to achieve, you need to execute on them. What is a story time or anecdote that kind of made this come to life for you?
Let's see. I think that there's a couple things. I want to say that I completely agree with you. I have tons of ideas, and maybe like you do too. Yeah. And they just never take off. I had this one interesting idea of creating like this marketing ops workshop or workout program where companies could follow it over the course of 90 days. And I got started on it and just never went anywhere. And I have like dozens of ideas like that. And I think that companies do the same thing too. They have this, one time we, at a mid-sized company that I was working with, we had this really cool idea of sharing, because we did competitive analysis, that was the product, and we would send sort of like dossiers, like confidential dossiers to target prospects on their competitors. Such a good idea,
Yeah.
like, oh, all this information, I can learn about my competitors, how to beat them, and I can use this product to do so. Great idea. We failed on the execution. We didn't send it to the right people. We didn't understand, the logistics around, like, how do we know if they opened it or not? How do we make sure it gets into their hands or not? So like all of that is operations, and your strategy, like, great idea, lack of execution just makes it fall flat. So that's one story around why you need to invest in operations and data and technology. I think the other thing that I want to share, and what I was kind of telling you beforehand, is this idea of not investing in operations it's kind of it's not entirely leadership's fault or executives' fault. I think that operations pros, especially marketing ops professionals, haven't really taken the time or haven't really had the appetite to improve their communication and translation skills to explain just how valuable and important operations is. I think so many of us, me included, have just expected executives to know that the tools and processes take time, that you need to, like, that a marketing automation platform migration can take several months and can take hours and hours and hours of effort. And the biggest one, that you've probably heard this too, the biggest one is not explaining why data is important. I think today it's getting a little bit more, people are starting to understand it more because of the AI. And, without, I wrote a post the other day and I said something to the effect of, good luck, using AI SDRs. If you have crappy data, you're just going to let them loose on the wrong information. And I think people are starting to get smart as to the fact that you actually need data for AI to work and actually deliver tangible results. But that's yet another thing that operations does a really bad job at, is explaining the value of the data. And yeah, I'm happy to talk about that at length, but that's a big one.
Well, there's a lot there that I want to unpack, right? So first of all, just the operationality of how marketing has changed is, I just kind of want to do this call out, is that it used to be that you could paint a sign and put it in front of your storefront, and then people knew you had a business that sold your thing, and they would just wander in because they were on foot, and that was the way life was. That's not how it is anymore. And so now the complexities require, as entry-level stakes, an entire tech platform that needs to have actionable results and like attribution and data. And otherwise you're just throwing money into the wind, right? And that's where, for some companies, like, that's the deal breaker. If your cash runway is 6 months and you're spending money on all the wrong things and you're not measuring outcomes, and you put all of your investment into pretty graphics and pretty videos, but nothing to measure the results of it, like, do the people that you're sending it to even care?
That's true. And I kind of have a theory about this. I'd love to hear your take, but I think one of the big reasons is that people don't understand the value of operations is that growth, especially hyper growth, hides a lot of mistakes, and it hides all the problems that happen. So let's say, for example, if you launch a product that's actually pretty good and you have product market fit, you can actually hobble along. I don't know if hobble is the right word, but you can actually get along for quite some time without setting some of these up, because the growth covers it. It's kind of like a blanket, or it's kind of sweeping stuff under the rug. But everyone's fine because the revenue keeps going up, and you hire more people, you hire more salespeople, and everyone's happy. And hey, there's the UTM parameters aren't set up. Hey, the tracking's not set up. Like, we don't even know where the lead source is coming from. But at the end of the day, people are just like, well, we'll worry about that later. And then when the rubber hits the road, like, finally you're getting into real competition. Finally, you're really needing to scale. Or, like what's happening now with the macroeconomic factors, all of a sudden growth is slowing and you need to get everything into gear. Then when you look under the hood and you realize like it's literally just people under there like running as fast as they can, and I think that's my theory as to why operations isn't set up correctly for many companies. And also I think it has to do with the leadership. Leadership doesn't they maybe haven't seen it before, so they don't understand how important it is to have great operations, and then they just, they call us in too late.
Yes, I have met more organizations that are calling MOPS in too late or any sort of like actionable analytics and insights way past when they should have. And it really, when possible, it's like real estate. The earlier you do it, the better. The best day was yesterday.
Ooh, good one. Good one.
But coming back to kind of like your people's processes and systems is that what people miss is that like just because you had hypergrowth and your product market fit covered it doesn't mean that you weren't leaving money on the table by not having your stuff locked in. There's a giant opportunity cost that changes whether you're a unicorn or just, yeah, we did great. Well, okay, you know what I want to do? I want to do exceptional, right? Like I want to make exceptional money. I want to have revenue that is like, people don't believe it on my resume. I don't want to have like, yeah, we did good. Yeah, we got some more investors. I don't want the company to need more investors, right? And that's where there's this like like the way our brains work is that's a very hard thing for us to like stop and think about, is that the opportunity cost or the missed money. But the people's processes and systems are a big deal breaker. And then to your other point is, how does leadership know what that looks like if they haven't seen it, or if MOPS isn't the subject matter expert in the value of their role? And you were saying some really interesting stuff about that. So I kind of want to hear more from you on these points.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there. I think that, it could be that whatever hypergrowth company is, they're, are led by founders and the people that either they're engineers or they are, marketing people, and they just haven't seen that. And that's not a hit on them. I think that everyone has their own strengths. It's kind of like you mentioned earlier. People have their own strengths, and if you can get a product to product market fit, like that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that is an important thing to realize. It's like I'm not criticizing. It's just kind of just the way it is, and like trying to point out solutions of how we can make this better going forward. I think when it comes to operations, people forget that it is people, process, platform, and in that order. That's really important. I think that too many people start with either the process or, more likely, the platforms and the tech. So many times there are, even today, even at big companies, they'll look around and say like, we have a ton of problems. Let's figure out what tool we need to bring in to fix it. And it's the death of all good things, honestly, because, even today, AI and the latest shiny objects, they're not going to fix core strategy problems, and they're not going to fix core alignment problems. So you have to get the people right, meaning that you have to have the right people on the bus. They have to have the right skills. They have to there's a lot that goes with people. They have to be all aligned on, what the goals are. And you can have the greatest tools, but if you don't have people with the right attitude, growth mindset, curiosity, sort of problem solving ability, the tools, you're going to get like 20%, if that, out of the tool that you bought. So people first. Processes, I think they do come next. And what I mean by that is, are the right people executing on the tasks? And then, I think sales to marketing, or marketing to sales handoff is the perfect, that's actually a process. At what level and at what threshold do we hand over leads to the sales team? And has sales agreed to to work those leads, and do they have the information that they need to actually, have intelligent conversations? That's a process thing. That's not like a tech. Tech will support that. Then after you have all of these things right, it's understanding, okay, how does tech enable us to get there faster, or enable these core things that we know that we need? And I think people need to remember the order. It's very important.
Yeah, I agree completely. I had a slide that I did in one workshop where I was like, it could be the holy grail of technology. If your team doesn't buy into it, they don't know how to use it, and they're pissed off that it's been invested in, does not matter. It's completely useless. It's dead in the water. It's sunk. You could bring in the newest ABM. You could switch CRM platforms. You could do anything you want. If the people aren't a part of the change management process, and they aren't like with the buy-in and understand, and they don't adopt it, it's not going to help you. Might as well have just stayed in a spreadsheet.
Yep. Yeah. And the latest tech too, like let's say you've had some of the more hot platforms like Braze or Iterable or like the new tech like that. It's not going to solve like poor marketing. If you have poor messaging, if you're not segmenting correctly, it's not going to do the work for you. And I think that even today you see that with AI, and I'll only do one quip on this. In my opinion, AI makes the effective people much more effective, and it makes the people that are not effective or they don't have their strategy right actually much worse. I think it amplifies what's already there, and then you see that online with the AI written comments and the AI written blogs and articles, and it's crap. And now there's a lot more of it. You know what I mean?
The faces I'm making is because I recently had a conversation with someone who was so dependent on AI that my responses to their questions made them stutter and confused, because they weren't as smart as the AI. They weren't informed, and they were relying on this other thing to do all the heavy lifting. And it's like, well, you have to read the stuff ahead of time. Like, you have to participate, like, more than just reading cue cards. It was a very interesting experience.
On one hand, I'm excited for all of the possibilities, because, things that took forever, I created an ebook and I think it's good in like a matter of hours, where ebooks, as can take weeks to do. But so on one hand, I'm optimistic. On the other hand, I'm a little bit, worried about, this next generation that's coming up with reliance on AI, and the ability and it kind of like steals from them that ability to kind of like think for yourself and think about like, hey, what do you think? Like, we need hardship to grow. And if everything's on a silver platter for us, I think that's a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. And so, coming back to how you mentioned that growth hides mistakes, is that having that experience and that holistic view and really understanding the business, I think helps us to see the mistakes that we're making, and then willingly choose to continue to make them, or be like, yo, this is going to turn into like a big problem right away. But when it comes to strategy or different types of things, when we talk about like our big ideas, is that our big ideas aren't always a good fit for everybody all the time.
Yeah.
And so, what works for like AWS may or may not work for a 2-man, engineer founder-led startup. What are some things about what you're saying that kind of help us understand when someone's missed the point entirely about what you're trying to get them to understand? Like, what's like a disclaimer?
Try to understand what?
So like people, processes, systems, or just like how MOPS and operations needs to articulate their value. Like, where can this go wrong? Like, or where is the impetus to be like, hey, from my experience, there was a time where I didn't promote my work, or I thought other people should just know about it, and they didn't, and this was my result.
Yeah. So a couple things, and I think what you're saying is interesting. Like, I want to talk about like the different type of companies, and then I'll get to the and then I'll get to the idea of communicating the value of ops, which is super important. But what you said around like, hey, what's going to work for AWS isn't going to work for whatever company is what's a cool company right now that's growing. Maybe the AI companies. I don't know, but I like to think about it in terms of like some principles that I think work no matter what, and these principles can be kind of scaled up and down. The first one is the idea of removing friction from the people that are getting the work done and that need to achieve some sort of objective. And so the obvious one is sales. So sales should spend majority of their time, 80% plus of their time, selling, right? And that means either communicating with customers via email or via chat or via like face-to-face or in person. That's where all of their time should be spending. So any of the time that they're spending filling out the CRM, doing all random types of paperwork, logging things, notes, internal meetings, you know what I mean? All of those should be like automated as much as they can. And that's where I'm a big favor of actually using AI and things like that to automate these things to give them their time back. Marketers is kind of the same way, except the most important parts of their day are understanding customers and spending time coming up with strategies on how to actually move them from one stage to the next. The simplified way is like influence, getting them to persuading them to do something. And I think that is a where they should be spending their time, not like filling out little spreadsheets or tagging things or like fixing mistakes. So I think great operations people know that they can enable marketers through the people, processes, and tech, whether it's creating templates, where it's creating automated workflows, whether, I think the dream is when you launch a campaign, all of the performance metrics, reporting metrics, all the way up the chain are automatically done. I think that that's kind of the holy grail. So whether you're at a small company or a big company, I think if you focus on those sort of first principles of removing friction, the other like quick, like funny example I came up with is like, when you're like playing chess is a great example of strategy. So your strategy is, okay, I need to move like a bishop from over here to the other side of the board to attack. That's the strategy and that's the execution. But imagine if you had to like build the bishop first, or like create it, or like clean it, or like make sure it's ready to go. It's just like all of that's a waste of time. You need to move the bishop. So the idea of removing friction, I think, is so important. The other topic around like how do we translate and what's the value of communication? I want to share kind of like a personal story that has been a big part of my like career journey. And when I was at AWS, I was really pigeonholed, I think, as the subject matter expert. Also partly my doing, maybe mostly my doing. I don't know. I really love this stuff, and I love to teach it, and I love to get in the weeds. And when leaders didn't understand the things that I was doing or the projects that I was, managing, like data hygiene, database health, setting up the internal infrastructure, I just chalked it up to them being ignorant, and I started like, sometimes I would start to get actually like bitter and like hard to work with. I developed a pretty bad reputation, I would say, not with my immediate team, we all got along, but with others. And I was passed up for promotion, which hurt. When I moved on to another leadership role, I really vowed to change that. And I wanted to show people that I could be a business leader, and that I wasn't just this one-dimensional, person. And what I did find was this crazy, amazing universe of like leadership and communication and empathy. And my favorite example, like tangible example, is when I work with other leaders and other directors, I come to them now and I say, my entire job is to help you achieve your goals. And what do you need help with? And just like you said, my goal is to remove friction from your marketing team. And the result was so great. And a lot of people, they like lament over not having enough resources, not have like, oh, I don't have enough resources. I did such a good job supporting my partners that they went to leadership and argued for more resources for me. And they said something to the effect of, Darrell's team is a critical part of us achieving our goals. We recommend you hire additional people on his team. And that was like, for me, like kind of like that full circle of like, now I get it. Now I understand why it is the way it is. And honestly, I wonder how different things would have been if I had realized these things sooner. But hey, it's a journey, whatever,
It's a journey, but sometimes you have to make the mistake in order to learn from it. Honestly, you have to feel that pain to make it personal for you to be like, I need to change something because this does not feel great.
Yes.
And I think that when it comes to cross-department collaborations is that servant leadership kind of idea is so impactful because we're all just trying to do the job that we're getting paid to do. Like we're all there to serve a function and try to achieve a certain goal. And it's not factually correct for any one department to assume that another department doesn't have their own thing that they're trying to achieve. And the only way for us to actually work together is for us to say, this is what I need. How can I help you do it? What do you need from this? And then meet everybody's criteria with tangible business outcomes attached to it so that we can say, yes, by making sure that we put this through compliance in a frictionless manner, that they were able to approve, we were able to see the approval, and then we were able to ship it immediately, we saved this much man hours that this process used to take. We eliminated this many meetings. We didn't have to pay this fine for putting out something wrong. When you can put business outcomes and monetary value to it, it helps to sell the dream. And then when it's time for headcount, you can be like, look, we just saved a whole entire salary. Imagine what we could do for more efficiency, for more growth, for more if we had additional headcount to provide these services within the organization.
Yep.
Or we just didn't waste money on bad data and spend half of our advertising budget to bad leads. There's all of it.
I agree. One of the interesting ways, just to put like an even more tangible thing, because a lot of people struggle with data investment. Mm-hmm. So one of the ways that I've done this is holdout groups. So what you do is you invest, and you could do it as a pilot. You don't have to roll out the whole thing. You pick a data partner, and you get a cohort, a random sample of leads, and you enrich that data set. Whether it's better titles, better industry, and maybe even use intent signals. And then you find a similar cohort with very similar characteristics, and then you give it like a month, 6 to 8 weeks, and then you see what happens. I guarantee you, especially if you're talking to the right people, the enriched contacts qualify for more campaigns. The campaigns are more relevant to them. They're more timely. They're let's say in the case of email, they're more personalized, right? And then when it gets to the sales team, they go through the sales cycle quicker because the sales team is armed with actually information that can help them. So if you compare those at the end, like leaders need to see this first, I guess, but like you and I probably know just naturally that it'll work.
Yeah.
But you'll actually see a like incremental lift in how much money that you're going to bring. So that's like a more tactical one that I would give. If marketers out there are struggling with getting leaders to invest in data, honestly, if you do the reverse math, you could do something to the effect of like every $100 that we spend on data yields X amount of revenue. I think it's a really powerful way to show that data actually translates into dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. And to further take this specific tangible like idea further, is that when you have the right type of enrichment that's accurate, because this is also removing risk, right? They don't want to invest in something if it doesn't work. But
Yes.
once you've removed that risk, and when you're looking and comparing across vendors with these pilots, is that the good ones, the correctly enriched, right? Because there's definitely going to be AI agents that are just, once again, doing the bad thing more to a bigger scale. But it's not just pipeline velocity and that they close sooner. It's also the churn, the long-term value is increased.
Totally.
And because they had a better experience. Now, you could totally F this up if your onboarding is abysmal. You can, like, if you're onboarding and your customer experience is like in the sewer, like, no, these people, like, it's going to be irrelevant. Your long-term value is just, you've neglected that on your own. But if you had, if everything, all things being equal, the amount of revenue that can really be grown from good data is demonstrable.
Yeah. I think, like, now that you say that, I'm just thinking that, like, the other way to say that is, like, nothing really operates in a vacuum. So you can't just do one thing and expect everything to work. Like, onboarding could be messed up. But the other flip side of it is, when you're actually thinking about your operations, it is interesting to try to put it into a vacuum just to see what happens. Because what I see very often is people will buy a tool, or they'll set up, like, my friend showed me this 7-branch nurture that they were launching, for the first time, right? Hey, we're launching a drip program, a nurture program. Can you check it out? Look, it has 7 branches. If they do this, they do this. If they have blonde hair, then it tricks this, it trips this. So it's so sophisticated. And I told them, I'm like, listen, when you're going 0 to 1, anything you do, you could, like, throw spaghetti at them and they'd probably result in something. You know what I mean? So you actually don't know if it's the fact that there is a nurture program to begin with, or how many branches, like, if those even help. And I think that that's what happens when we do technology too. People just see a problem, like, oh, we need to do ABM. Let's just buy this tool. But, when you're going 0 to 1, anything makes a difference. So I think the best thing, and we kind of talked about it earlier, is to really just do pilots. Low lift, manual, grassroots, duct tape it together. Have sales and marketing work together on some accounts. That's it. You don't even need tools. And then once you have some sort of success, then you use the tools to accelerate. And it just ties back, right? People, process, technology. Always that order.
Always. And also, once you've done it scrappy, then you have a better, more clear definition of where the friction points are for your specific needs. Because the last thing you want to do is think that your friction points are X, Y, and Z, and pick out a platform that answers for those, and go through the, like, diligence and the onboarding and the whole thing, and then put it into life and realize, like, that was never our friction points, and now we actually have these 5 problems, and how are we going to fix that? And it comes back to something you said earlier about then investing in more tech and doing this and trying to shiny toy object fix it, when really you just need to do a scrappy project in the first place to have the real data.
Yeah, we're saying the same things, just in different ways. Like, bringing in the tech to solve fundamental problems is wrong. I think also, when you say scrappy, I think it also is great to build and develop that muscle and that habit of being scrappy, because the converse is that you never want to get to this place. And I know many marketers like this, where they think, in order to get results, I need to spend more money. I need more money to get more results. And you really don't. You need more money to scale, but to actually drive tangible results and improve the customer experience, you just need your mind. You need to be creative, and you need to work with people, and you need to be a problem solver. That muscle and that habit and that trait is invaluable, and is, I would say, it's only like the top 25% of marketers, ops people have that mindset. And so many of us, unfortunately, think that we just need to spend money to make things better.
Yeah. And I mean, I can think of times in my career where I actually got us to spend less money and we got better results.
There you go.
I think that, like, first of all, I am all about spending money where it makes sense. Like give me the budget, first of all. Like I am not saying in any way, shape, or form to slash marketing's budget. What I am saying is that when you have those restrictions and you are strategic, that you can do things like have a 50% reduce in customer acquisition costs, because you start to get really into the data and the application and the customers to see what's working. And then once you're close to your customers and you have the data behind it, then you can get those huge results. And sometimes you just need to not do things that aren't moving the needle that you wouldn't have looked at if growth was happening or if budgets were there.
Yeah, I love that. And like, see what's like, look at your campaigns and see what's working, see what your customers respond to. And to make that even more tangible, like I like to simplify it. I think all of us have a good sense of if something's working. Like the numbers just kind of go up this way, and like, let's say you launch a new webinar. If people, and you launch it every month, if people keep showing up in droves, it's working. If you have to like pull teeth to get anybody to show up, not working. You know what I mean? And you just apply that to all campaigns. People aren't opening your email, it's not working. So I think that like going back to those first principles and understanding your customer and understanding what's going to make them move. And gosh, I love this. I just randomly thought of this, but like the other thing I think her name is Ashley Faust, I want to say, but she had this concept of like not funnels anymore, but playgrounds. I love that one where prospects and customers are just learning about your company and your solution through different avenues and different things, whether it's events, programs, solutions, trying it out, and kind of like finding their own way to discover you. I just love that so much because it's much more customer centric than I think than what we're traditionally trying to do, where you're grabbing somebody out of the crowd and saying, you're a middle funnel. So you're going to, look at this price calculator. You know what I mean? And anyway, sorry about that tangent. I just remembered that.
No, that's definitely been a long theme of this podcast specifically, is this almost like matrix or non-linear pathway that people take. And I think where marketing operations specifically falls into the trap is just the way that you code stuff, if this, then that. And so when you're thinking in logic about like how if this queue, then this, when you're setting up a software, you have to blur those lines mentally when you're also putting it into the software. So a playground, is it an MQL if they go down the slide? Is it an MQL if they do this? Like, and that's where you need to talk with sales who have those one-to-one conversations. They're like, look, I talked to someone, they experienced 3 of our assets like this. They were still not even ready for a sales call. Just because they did the free trial does not mean they wanted 5 calls and 3 emails from me. And having the conversation with sales and giving them credibility really makes a big impact on those kind of journeys or experiences. Totally.
It's an art and a science. And I think that the danger comes when you like over index on one or the other. Like I think like what you're saying is like, hey, they need 3 emails after this amount of time. Like that might be over indexing on the science part. Like, yeah, it is true that, over long periods of time, certain customers and prospects will follow a specific path, and that'll tell you like what to do more of and what to do less of. But trying to like map out every single thing I think is a fool's errand, just like, getting perfect attribution is a fool's errand. But at the same time, you could over-index too, I think, on the creative part, which is like you do things for the sake of it, or like you're a marketer just to win awards at marketing award shows, not to service the customer. Like that also is over-indexing on the creative. And I think the best marketers, ops people, whoever, business people, really go on that line really well of the perfect intersection of art and science.
Agreed heavily. So kind of thinking towards the future, where do you think marketing is going and where do you think it should go? Aren't they necessarily the same thing?
Yes, I am like I don't know what you refer to this as, but like a purist when it comes to marketing. I like read old marketing books, and I you know in the past. So Peter Drucker is one of my favorite business authors, and he said, there's only two functions of a business: marketing and innovation. And innovation is like creating something new, creating something of value, or rearranging things to provide more service. And everything else is marketing. So sales, customer service, like the way that your customer experiences the product and your company, that's marketing. And I'm very much in favor of having us go back there. And right now, my theory is that we come up with all these weird terms like GTM and revenue ops and all of these things, but it's all really just marketing, in my opinion. And because we've drifted so far away, we kind of come up with, new labels to name like old things. So I think that my prediction is that we'll actually go back to that, where marketing does have influence over the product, the price, the place, and the promotion. Like all of those things like are actually important for marketing, because I think marketing should own the customer experience. And once that happens, I think that the people that are the right hand, like the right hand person of the CMO or the leader of marketing, is marketing ops. I think that they're the ones that will provide the data, the infrastructure, and all of the things to like make great marketing come to life. And I might be biased because I am in marketing ops, and I write about marketing ops, and everything I do is marketing ops. Like I might be biased, but I also think that there's some truth to it. I think it's going to be true.
Yeah, I love that you called out Drucker. Definitely one of the most influential authors in how I view business. So that was my favorite mindset shift during my MBA, was just drinking the Drucker Kool-Aid. So it was huge. Now there's so much there that I really. What other books would you call out that you're just like, hey, I read this, you should read it, or do you have that posted somewhere where people could find it?
It's management, I think, is the classic one. And
Yeah.
honestly, it's really kind of tough to get through. It's really dense.
I just outed myself as such a nerd. I'm like, no, I love this thing. And you're like, look, dude, this is really hard to read.
I love that. I think that a book that changed the way that I view a lot of things is called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's by Patrick Lencioni. It's a parable, and I love those. So they're like a story. And I'll tell you the main takeaway. When you're in a company and you're saying like, this team isn't doing this for us, this team doesn't deliver, this team is so hard to work with, you're already like on your back foot. You're already going the wrong direction. There's only one team. The company is an entire team. The competitor, the other teams, are the ones outside. Your competition is like, if you're Coca-Cola, the competition's Pepsi, not your internal group. And like once that like clicked for me, like even today when you go into corporate meetings, they'll say like, my team's not going to commit to that. My team's not going to do this. I need to protect my team. It's all wrong. We're all just one team. Once I realized that, and that book, I think, brings it really to life in an entertaining way. It just changed the way that I operate. We're all just one team.
Love that. All right. Behind the curtain, last question. What is a question someone should ask you, but they don't? The way to think of this is like, maybe you secretly are a collector of Stanley mugs. I don't know. Or you get people asking you for advice about something, and they're way down at XYZ, almost like your sophisticated workflow like example. Maybe they're way down at XYZ and they really need to start at ABC. Like the example I use for this is, someone asked me about a Pinterest strategy. I'm like, do you have a content strategy first? Maybe it's not Pinterest that you need, but you need to like have blog articles. So what is a question that someone should ask you, but they don't?
I would say, So one thing that I'm just like riding the wave of and I'm so grateful for is like not only do I have a full-time job, but I like almost have a full-time creator job. I feel like really lucky to have it to the point where I can, monetize it actually, and it's quite profitable. And I think that I wonder why I'm able to do that and still operate and not go crazy. And I think it's this. I think that most of what I start doing, I start on paper, just on a blank piece of paper or a blank doc. And writing truly clarifies your thinking and helps you, I don't know, it gives you direction. And everything is kind of connected. So when I work, solve problems at work, I put it down on paper, and those documents turn into thought leadership for other people, and not just thought leadership for other people, but for me too. And I really wish that more people would start like that. And I try. That's like the first thing I do too when my team asks me questions is like, "What should we do about this? What should we do with this?" And I'm said, "Can you put it down on paper so we can look through it together?" And that'd be my advice for people that are looking to kind of like a little bit more direction and a little bit more clarity. You'll be surprised with the results.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that as you process something, whether it's verbally or on paper, is that you really start to notice the trends or the patterns or the like, hey, wait a second. Where's that assumption coming from? So I agree. I live with like a notebook of just blank sketch pad and like different colored pens to help me think through things or draw pictures or work through it. And it's so impactful. So speaking of your your content creator stuff, where's the best place for people to find you? Like where, if they were going to leave this episode and they heard it through Apple Podcasts, like how would they be like, I read his newsletter or I found him on LinkedIn? Like what's the deets?
LinkedIn for sure. And then if you just search the marketing operations leader, that's my newsletter. So yeah, I guess I got lucky because no one else named their newsletter that. So just search it and it'll be the first one to pop up. And you can, and it's free. So that's the best place to find me.
Awesome. And then my name's Leanne. I am also on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions for me, you can reach out to info@markigy.com. Thank you so much, Darrell. And this was such a great episode. I really am happy that we could do this.
Likewise, Leanne. Thanks.
Thanks.